College of Trial Lawyers Gale Cup Moot. My name is Daniel Brown, Vice President of the Criminal Lawyers Association and Chair of this year's event, which has been a unique experience for all of us. I would also like to introduce my Gale Cup Committee colleague and Criminal Lawyers Association board member, Christine Mainville, who will help me provide some of these remarks en français. Since the onset of the pandemic last year, courts across Canada have transitioned to virtual hearings for many cases, even at our Supreme Court of Canada. Our goal for the Moot this year was to make sure teams were able to meaningfully participate as they have in previous years, and to give participants a sense of a real virtual courtroom. One benefit of the virtual format has been increased access to teams across Canada who weren't able to come to Ontario in previous years. And the virtual format has allowed for greater participation from judges nationwide. The regional diversity of this Moot is fantastic and something we hope we'll strive to maintain in coming years.
Bonsoir à tous et à toutes. Alors, comme mon collègue vient de le dire, l'un des avantages du format virtuel est un accès accru pour les équipes à travers le Canada qui n'ont pas été en mesure de se déplacer en Ontario pour le concours dans les années passées. Le format virtuel a aussi permis une meilleure participation de la part des juges à travers le Canada. La diversité régionale de ce concours cette année est fantastique et il s'agit de quelque chose que nous allons tâcher de maintenir dans les années à venir.
I want to take this opportunity to recognize everyone who helped make this event a huge success. First, I want to thank the many judges who gave up their time preparing for and attending our virtual competition, especially those on the West Coast who got up extra early this morning to be there for their 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time Moot slots. The judges' participation makes the Gale Cup special and meaningful for everyone and helps give a realistic courtroom experience. We're especially thankful for the participation of our three amazing Supreme Court of Canada justices, Justice Abella, Justice Brown, and Justice Kazirer, who presided over our final rounds of the competition this afternoon.
En effet, la participation des juges fait de la Coupe Gale un concours spécial et ça a beaucoup d'importance pour les étudiants parce que ça leur offre une expérience de plaidoirie bien réelle. Nous sommes surtout reconnaissants d'avoir eu la participation de 3 juges remarquables de la Cour suprême du Canada, les juges Abella, Brown et Kazirer, qui ont présidé la ronde finale du concours cet après-midi. Merci à vous.
I'd also like to recognize the law firms and organizations whose generous financial support allows this competition to continue. We're especially thankful for the American College of Trial Lawyers for their significant financial contributions to this year's event. As you can imagine, there's a lot of work that goes into planning the Moot throughout the year to make sure everything runs smoothly. This year presented a host of new challenges as we try to navigate this virtual format. And this event wouldn't have been possible without the members of the Gale Cup Planning Committee, our tech support team, and our many volunteers who help ensure that this event ran smoothly. I'm really proud of the work we've accomplished.
Oui, alors comme vous pouvez l'imaginer, il y a beaucoup de travail qui est requis tout au long de l'année afin de planifier l'événement pour qu'en bout de ligne, tout se passe en douceur. Cette année nous a présenté une série de nouveaux défis alors qu'il nous fallait naviguer ce format virtuel. Cet événement n'aurait pas été possible sans les membres du comité organisateur de la Coupe Gale, notre équipe de soutien technique, ainsi que tous nos bénévoles qui ont aidé à faire en sorte que l'événement se passe sans incident. Nous sommes bien fiers de ce que nous avons accompli cette année.
Lastly, I want to congratulate all the participants in this year's Gale Cup Moot. Watching all of you perform over the last 2 days has shown that the future of our profession is bright. Historically, the winners of this competition have gone on to become some of Canada's top legal influencers. Past winners include a former Justice, Thomas Cromwell of the Supreme Court of Canada, and our current Minister of Justice, David Lametti. I'm excited to follow your careers, and I'm certain that all of you will leave your own unique marks on the legal profession for decades to come.
Merci à tous les participants surtout. Historiquement, les gagnants de ce concours sont devenus parmi les membres de notre profession les plus influents au Canada. Certains des gagnants passés comprennent le juge à la retraite de la Cour suprême du Canada, Thomas Cromwell, et notre ministre de la Justice actuel, l'honorable David Lametti. Nous avons hâte de suivre vos carrières et ne doutons pas que chacun d'entre vous laissera votre empreinte sur la profession juridique dans les décennies à venir. Afin de reconnaître vos efforts ce soir, tous les compétiteurs de la Coupe Gale recevront une adhésion gratuite à la Criminal Lawyers Association de l'Ontario pour le reste de l'année 2021. Nous espérons vous voir à certains de nos événements virtuels et en personne à venir.
In recognition of your efforts this weekend, all Gale Cup competitors will be receiving a free membership to the Criminal Lawyers Association for the rest of 2021. We hope to see all of you at some of our upcoming virtual and in-person events. Before turning things over to our MC for the evening, Brian Gover, we have a very special message from one of our past Gale Cup winners, the Minister of Justice and the Attorney General of Canada, the Honourable David Lametti.
Hello, bonjour. Thank you for inviting me to participate in this great event. Je tiens à commencer en mentionnant que je m'adresse à vous de mon bureau à Ottawa, situé sur un territoire algonquin. It's a pleasure to be back at the Gale Cup Moot. It's hard to believe that it's been 33 years since I was in your shoes competing at the Gale Cup with my McGill teammates. I know the hard work that you've all put in. I know the support of coaches, family, and friends to help you get to this point, and I thank them all. While things went rather well for us that year, based on everything I've heard about the quality of your advocacy this weekend, I'm not sure how we would stack up right now. In my year, I was an appellant asking to reverse a 6-0 Supreme Court of Canada decision. I ran into Mr. Justice Horace Creever, one of the most brilliant jurists on the bench, and he had me going in circles. So don't despair if you feel you were challenged. It will be a lesson well learned. I know firsthand, as I've said, how much hard work goes into preparing for this moot. I want to commend all of you for your dedication and enthusiasm in preparing for your successful performances this weekend, particularly in light of the extra challenges that this year has brought. J'aimerais que nous puissions célébrer vos accomplissements en personne, mais nous devons nous adapter aux défis de notre époque. Au moins, vous améliorez votre éloquence virtuelle, sans doute une compétence très recherchée dernièrement. Our country needs passionate and capable advocates. I know that the skills you have developed through this moot will serve you well in your future endeavors, whether in the courtroom or the classroom or, say, in a cabinet meeting. Félicitations à tous les participants pour vos performances en fin de semaine. Si vous êtes l'avenir de la profession, l'avenir est beau. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you very much for that message, Justice Minister Lametti. I'd now like to turn things over to our MC for the evening, Brian Gover.
Merci, Monsieur le ministre Lametti. Nous aimerions maintenant accueillir Brian Gover, un autre membre de notre comité organisateur et votre maître de cérémonie ce soir. Il vous présentera nos prochains invités.
Thank you, Daniel and Christine. I'm pleased to MC the Gale Cup Moot Awards ceremony. And this year we have a special event, and that is a fireside chat with Justice Rosalie Abella in conversation with Anil Kapoor. And importantly, for those who've been answering judges' questions today, you have an opportunity to ask questions yourself. If you have a question for Justice Abella, please type it in the Q&A box, and we will try to get to as many of your questions as possible. I will now invite Justice Abella and Anil Kapoor to turn on their cameras.
Hello, thanks a lot, Brian. I have the honor to have a little chat with Justice Abella this evening, and I would like to give a few words of introduction. But I don't want to do a traditional introduction where I go through her history. You can read all of that over at the Supreme Court website. But I want to remark on two things that stand out for me about Justice Abella and speak to her qualities as a person and as a jurist. In August of 2019, the Los Angeles Times ran a profile on her. And David Shribman was the reporter or the columnist. He interviewed a number of people to get their views of Justice Abella. And there were three people that had interesting things to say. The first person I want to tell you about is Conrad Black. We all know about Conrad Black, his legal troubles, the National Post, and everything else, and all of his columns that he writes. He said of Justice Abella, that he disagrees with just about everything she does and believes, but she would get my vote as an ecumenical saint. Alan Dershowitz said that he disagrees with most of what she does and believes, but that he would trade her for 2 American Supreme Court justices and a draft choice to be named later. The late Ruth Bader Ginsburg said of Justice Abella that she's proud to count her among her dearest sisters-in-law. That will tell you something about how Justice Abella is universally respected across the political spectrum. Also, the final thing I want to, oh, she's popped up there. There you are, Justice Abella. Nice to see you. Welcome.
Yeah.
I want to leave before we start our chat. I want to talk about or reference one case, just one case, that really speaks to your commitment to equality, and as a young lawyer at the time, to me as well. When you were on the Court of Appeal in 1998, you decided a case called Rosenberg. And in Rosenberg, the question was whether spouse in the Income Tax Act includes same-sex partner or not. And there was a constitutional challenge to suggest or to say that it must do so by the terms of the Constitution. You agreed, but you wrote these words that speak to your commitment to equality. Differences in cohabitation and gender preferences are a reality to be equitably acknowledged, not an indulgence to be economically penalized. There is less to fear from acknowledging diversity than from tolerating exclusionary prejudice. Welcome, Justice Abella. I know all the students are clapping now. Maybe we should pause for, I don't know, probably be 5 minutes by the time they stop.
10, 15 is fine. This may be the last applause I get, Anil. It's for the next few months.
Welcome. How are the Moots? How did you enjoy it?
Sorry?
How did you enjoy the Moots?
Oh, I loved it. It always astonishes me when I see law students in Moots, and especially this one, most recently this one, but especially this one, how incredibly confident and poised and prepared they are, unintimidated by the questions they get from the judges, who do not in any way patronize them. I mean, the questions that my 2 wonderful colleagues asked today were questions they would have asked easily in a courtroom. And the 3 of us felt that we could easily have had that advocacy in the Supreme Court during a hearing and been very happy with it. So what the 3 of us thought was that the quality of the advocates was outstanding. And I want to say, too, that we noticed the care that the organizers took to make sure that everything was looked after. I know how complicated it is to organize something like this, especially remotely.
Right.
But you did it, you and Daniel Brown and all of the people who worked with you did a magnificent job in making it look very easy and fun.
Well,
so thank you.
The students really are the stars of all of this. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, given your vantage point, you have 2 sons, both of whom are lawyers, and we hear from a lot of law students about anxiety around, are they going to get the high enough grades? How are they going to get the job? How are they going to pay off the debt? And there's a lot of anxiousness among students. And I see it when I teach at the law school, and my colleagues do as well. What can you say to young members, to be soon young members of our bar, embarking upon their legal careers?
I can only tell you what I feel very deeply about advice, and that is, don't take advice from anybody. I mean, you cannot know what it's going to feel like to be who you are, and people will always give you their best suggestions, but it doesn't necessarily work for who you are. So if I had listened to people I would never have gone to law school because they said girls aren't lawyers. I wanted to be a litigator. I like talking. And they said, and I don't think I ever saw a woman in a courtroom in the 4 years that I was practicing law before I became a judge. I wouldn't have gone to the family court because people said the family court is in the hierarchy of the judiciary, the lowest court. It turned out to be where I learned how to be a judge. They said, don't go to the labor board, it's controversial. Don't do a royal commission, it's controversial on equality. Don't do the law reform commission, it's tanking. Why do you want to be associated? So every single thing that I did was against the advice of most people, but I saw all of these things as opportunities rather than as advancement missions. And so if I do have one thing to tell young students, the anxiety you feel is very normal. Financial pressures are so tough, and not knowing what your future is going to be is very tough. But you don't have to figure out where you're going to end up. And if I had sat back and said to myself when I graduated 50 years ago, gee, one day I want to be on the Supreme Court of Canada, I can tell you I would not have taken any of the professional risks that I took against people's advice. I would have said, well, I better be safe and I just better keep my head down and maybe one day I'll get through the eye of the needle and will end up on a court. And instead, I had the most wonderful time in the profession, doing everything that came along because it felt like an opportunity. And it was an opportunity. And I learned by each one of those things. And everything I did made what I'm now doing, I think, better. I got the textures of law. And law is full of variety and humanity and intellectualism. It has it all. So as much as you can taste, while you're young, do it. And if you're having a good time, stay where you are. But if opportunities come your way, just go with them because you never know where you're going to end up. It'll surprise you, but it'll be a happy surprise. So don't box yourself in.
One of the things you mentioned was, you went to the family court or the Ontario Family Court, and it was people sort of cautioned you against it. You were 29 years old when you went to the family court. You were pregnant with your second, right?
Second son.
And one of the problems we have, at least at the criminal bar, I can't speak for the commercial bar otherwise, but at the criminal bar is keeping women in the practice. And you had a young family, you had the demands of being a family law court judge, and you weren't just doing that. I mean, you're at the Law Reform Commission, you ran the Royal Commission on Equity in Employment. You did a whole number of things. What advice do you have to young women who are either trying to do that or are about to do that and considering having a family and trying to stay in the practice?
Well, again, I won't give advice to anybody. I'm Jewish. So there was no question that I was going to get married and have children. It wasn't a choice for me growing up. And because my parents completely supported my wanting to be a lawyer because my father had been, it was always kind of seamless. So that doesn't really work for everybody. I also lucked into marrying a professor who was wonderful and spent time at home. We had his income to be able to pay for somebody who could look after the kids so that we had the time to be with them. And we were lucky because we had healthy children. And my mother lived 5 minutes away. So I used to get a lot of calls, Anil, from the press who were very interested in how do you balance things when I was young and pregnant. And by the way, when I was pregnant with our first son in 1973, I never saw another mother in the legal profession. They may have been there. I didn't see them. And I also found that pregnancy was a very good advocacy tool. Judges were terrified that I'd have the baby if they weren't nice to me. But I used to get these calls and I would say to them, I am very lucky to have all of these constellation of supports around me. Why don't you do articles on the women who are really going through a very tough time, the women who work at underpaid jobs and then come home and look after their unpaid domestic duties and then get up early in the morning to drag their kids to childcare. So I'm not the person. It was easy for me compared to what it's like for interview them.
Right.
I said, when I'm 75, which is now a few months away, and I still have a husband who likes me and nice kids, then I will give you interviews. So I can't tell you how it's going to work. I know how hard it is to be able to manage all of those things. Part of it is everybody wants to find a work-life balance. Well, there isn't a work-life. There's no such thing as work-life balance because your kids come first and your spouse comes first, and you may have parents who need that you want to be with, and everything comes first. So balance means, what do you feel your life is like? And if it feels okay, you've got the right balance. But the notion of compartmentalize it, did I get enough luxury time in this week? Did I spend enough time doing painting or whatever? That is so personal. No one can tell you how to do that. So it is a challenge, but don't look to people who've been lucky. I think everybody's got to do it in a way that works for them. They may not want to have children. They may not want to have a career and have children. They may want to re-enter after they've done the things that they feel are what they want to spend their time on. Our responsibility, I think, as a profession, is to make all of that possible for them. Because what makes me so sad is to lose the talent. These people went to law school because they wanted to be members of our profession. How great is that? Well, make it easy for them to come back so that we continue to get the benefit of them when they do the things that they feel they need to do in order to make their life work for them.
I want to ask now a slightly different question. I want to focus, because you've been judging some moots today. The students have been preparing for moots. I want to ask you about preparing and arguing for an appeal. And in particular, the relationship between written advocacy on the one hand and oral advocacy on the other hand. And you were on the Court of Appeal, on the Supreme Court of Canada now. What tips do you have for young advocates or any advocate on written advocacy? What works for you as a judge in a factum? And then I want to ask the same question about oral advocacy. What works for you in oral advocacy on an appeal?
Well, that's a very good question, because my first level of judging was the family court, where there was nothing in writing, and then the labor board, where there was an application in writing, but few submissions, and then the Court of Appeal, which was factums, my first introduction to factums. And I realized then how important it was, because preparation is key to everything in life. I mean, there's no avoiding preparation as the best builder of confidence. I'm always nervous before I speak or go into a courtroom. Used to be when I was a lawyer. The only thing that makes me feel less nervous is to know that I'm really, really prepared. So I saw in the Court of Appeal, because all of the judges prepared, that when I read a factum, I found my brain working either towards or against the arguments that I was reading. It's like reading a book, right? You either get taken along on the journey, or it just isn't working for you. And then by the time I got to the Supreme Court, that was absolutely the case. That a very good factum could prepare you for leaning a certain way. However, so can a really good argument. Sometimes my mind will be changed, not even so much by the level of advocacy. I mean, good lawyers have lost in front of us, and it doesn't mean that they weren't good advocates, just that we didn't think the law was with them. But it's amazing how sometimes a question or an answer to a question can turn you around. So the key is to be open. I mean, if I had to say what makes a good judge, and this is something all lawyers should know, it's to have an open mind, not an empty mind where there's nothing in there and you have no preconceived notions. That's ridiculous. You want people over 10 to have ideas and preconceived notions. It's to being open to having those ideas change, by what you hear and read. And I always am persuaded by what I read and by what I hear, because I never walk into a hearing. Actually, I don't walk into anything and think, I know all the answers. And the more I judge, it's been 45 years now, the less judgmental I feel. Because I've learned more. Pardon?
Sorry, do you ever go back to the oral argument to refresh yourself when you're preparing your judgments?
I do. I go back to the transcript, not to the oral argument. But I'm visual. I like participating in an oral argument, but I want to see it. Because I say I still use a pen. I don't know how to use a computer, so I underline and I make notes in the corner. And by the way, some of my best ideas have come from disagreeing with something. Mm-hmm. Because it's Isaiah Berlin said, "There's no pearl without some irritation in the oyster." So sometimes something will be very frustrating to me or rub me in a way that makes me uncomfortable. And I'll have to analyze for myself what it is that's making me uncomfortable. And I will get to where I might not have been if I hadn't been annoyed by the argument or unsettled by the argument. It's how, by the way, in writing the Royal Commission report, I came to deciding that equality should be defined as accommodating differences and respecting them rather than a similarly situated approach. And I got it because I read the 14th Amendment jurisprudence of the United States, where everybody is treated the same, and thought, no, that doesn't work. That doesn't make sense. Because if I'm not able-bodied, I need a wheelchair to get into a building. And if you're going to treat me the same as everybody, then I don't get the ramp. So, but it was from reading jurisprudence I found myself disagreeing with that I just kind of came to a different position. So I can't tell you what works all the time. It depends on the case, the law, the lawyer, the factums, but advocacy matters. It does matter.
You mentioned that you want judges to have an open mind, but not an empty mind. I want to ask you about the selection of judges and what sort of, this may be a bit touchy, but what sort of criteria should we be looking for? What do we want in a judge? And just incidentally, is being a lawyer the best training to be a judge?
Well, being a judge, my view about being a lawyer, there was a time when people said we don't want people who are just criminal lawyers on the bench or just family lawyers or just real estate lawyers. I think a good legal mind is a portable tool. And I think anybody with a good legal mind, there may find areas that he or she is more or less interested in. But if you've got a good legal mind, you can learn. We learn all the time. And no judge on our court is a specialist in everything. So we're always learning. So I think everything is good training for being a judge. Everything. Is there anything that's better? I think on my court, it's helpful to have had appellate experience, but we've had very good judges on our court who were just very good advocates, and they managed very well. But the qualities of a lawyer, I think the qualities of a good lawyer are the qualities of a good person. Mm-hmm. Are you curious? Are you ready to see what's in front of you instead of top down? This is how I feel about the world, so I'm going to judge you from what I think is the right answer. Learning to see people from the ground up rather than the top down. Somebody who is compassionate, intelligent, thoughtful. Well, I'm a believer in literacy. Well-read, and by well-read, I mean not just reading the law and the cases. That's a very narrow view of what law is. Reading novels, reading biographies, reading magazines, reading newspapers, going to movies, all movies. I saw Howard the Duck. What can I say? All the airplane movies. I love the Police Academy movies, but I also find myself when I'm reading book, I want good books. Movies don't have to be good, but I want good books. I have learned from all of that what people are like, because our own experiences are limited to what we know and understand. So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What I wanted to ask about this approach is law as an instrument of social change, and the seemingly endless debate about more activist, less activist judges. And how do you see the role of your court? Is it an instrument of social change? Is it meant to be more passive? Is there anything to this debate between activist versus non-activist judges?
Well, let me first tell you, in conclusion to the last question you asked, what makes a good judge and what makes a good lawyer? I really think Canada is so lucky in the lawyers and the judges that we have. I mean, I'm not unfamiliar with what goes on in other countries, in the judiciary and in the profession. And I have, from the day I graduated from law school, been a romantic about our profession. I love being a lawyer. I'm so proud of the judiciary and the lawyers. So whatever we've done, we seem to have done it pretty well, because I like the product, and of course that matters. So I don't even know how to answer your question, Anil, about can you frame it another way to give?
I guess there is this current of law as social change,
as
right?
Activists. Yeah. So take it from that to what the debate is in the United States and what we haven't really had here. I think we have had supply side rhetoric from the states since the 90s. I never heard the expression activist or politicization of the judiciary until the 90s. It was coming from political segment of this in the United States. And it was carrying over here because in the 80s, when we first got the charter, I think the public was really excited that we finally had a Supreme Court that was engaged in taking rights seriously and took a muscular approach. I mean, Brian Dixon and Bertha Wilson were, to me, the Fred and Ginger of the charter. They choreographed it and did it beautifully, and the public loved it. Well, then the press changed in the 90s, and we had different political leaders in the United States. In Britain, we had Thatcher and Reagan of different view. And so that started to happen here. It filtered down. And the kinds of things the public had liked about the court being muscular suddenly turned into the court being activist. Now, I don't know what that means, active. We decide the law. But the debate got practically silly when they said you interpret law, you don't. And I thought, 1989, when the Privy Council decided that the word person included women in the BNA Act, that was an interpretation of a word, and it was making law. Women became persons. Hello. So it's just a paper fight, and it's a paper fight among people who just, when they say activist, when they say political, when they say politicians in robes, what they mean is we don't like the decision. We don't like the result, because it's you can have a different approach to how you see the law and what you see the role of the courts is. But in a constitutional democracy, where the court is assigned the role by the legislature to see whether the legislature is compliant with the Constitution, when you strike down laws or you uphold laws, you are making law. And I just think we've got to get away, and I think we have in the last few years gotten away from being caught in the I was going to use another word. We don't have the partisan debates about what the court's role is, but we do have people agreeing or disagreeing with the result, which is as you would expect. I mean, I remember even from the beginning, there is no decision where the loser thinks you got it right. None. So in 100% of the cases, somebody always thinks you got it wrong. But if you can show that it's done with integrity and that you have considered the arguments and that this isn't just a flight of fancy, which doesn't happen in this country. We are not judges who go with, oh, well, this is appointed by this government, appointed by that government. You can't. I was appointed by the Conservatives and by the Liberals in my career. That is true for most of my colleagues in the last 17 years that I've been on the court. When I tell that to Americans, they're stunned that that could be the case. But it's our strength. We just decide the cases before us to the best of our ability. Sometimes it stretches the law. Sometimes it keeps it as it was. But in every case, it is an approach that each judge brings based on a solid understanding of what the role of a constitution is, the role of a statute is, the role of law in a democracy is. And every one of us feel that we have a transcendent duty, not to public opinion, who knows what that is, wild mood swings, right? Today this, tomorrow that, but the public interest is our goal. That are we serving the public interest in the way we're doing it? And I've never met a judge who doesn't take that seriously in this country, ever.
So just to conclude,
oh no, is it over already?
Yes,
Oh.
we'll do an extended remix later.
Okay.
What I wanted to ask you about is the way forward. I mean, you're coming up now. You're going to hit your 70th birthday. Congratulations!
Thank you.
So good as you do. What's to be done in the future? What do you see are our greatest challenges going forward in the area of civil liberty and human rights?
Oh, every era that I remember, I mean, in the 70s, we were debating everything. We were just opening up. What do we do about language? What do we do about disabilities? What do we do? How do we start paying attention to our shocking conduct towards Indigenous people? That was all just starting, and women. That was all starting to happen in the 70s, and people said, well, this is, are we really ever going to be able to do this? And then suddenly you had 11 women on the Supreme Court of Canada and a female Chief Justice for 18 years. And now 40% of the judiciary is female. So that we still have to take care of women in the profession to make sure that we can hold on to them if they want to. And then the 80s was the charter, and how do we deal with rights and what the respective roles of parliament, legislatures, and judges. We worked that out. And then the 90s with the Lemaire Court, I think people were concerned about the focus on the rights of the accused, but of course you should have focus on the rights of the accused. And now we're swinging back. So what do I see the areas? Well, technology has produced enormous pressures on the legal system because we can't keep up with all of the changes. So we have to think about whether we hold on to basics or whether we need to adjust them. Diversity, religious diversity. What does inclusion mean? On what basis do we make sure that this country continues to keep allowing the mainstream to include as many as possible? Privacy. I mean, all of those were issues when I started practicing law. They are just more intense now because the solutions, whenever we think we've got them, we don't. They slip through our fingers and they get reconfigured into something different. What I do know is, given the quality of the people in the legal and judicial professions, and the public servants and the academics who think through these issues, we'll get there. Mm-hmm. I have absolute confidence that Canada has what it takes to keep democracy safe. And we'll keep doing that because of the people who are in it. The lawyers, judges, professors, parliamentarians. I think that's what people want. And so we'll get it.
And finally, just an question. What's the future for you? What are you going to do?
Oh, hopefully see my grandchildren more. I don't know, in all of the careers that I've had, Anil, what I've never said is, what am I going to do next? kind of happened, and things I hope will happen. I have a lot of books I want to finish. There are things out there that I probably haven't even thought about. All I hope is that my family can stay healthy, and that we are able to enjoy each other and the things that we love to do together. We have had a very lucky time since coming to Canada in 1950 in my family, and I don't take a bit of it for granted, and I just hope there's more of the same, but I don't presume it.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time tonight to speak with us. Whatever you do, we look forward to your continuing contribution to our public life and a rewarding private and personal life to you going forward, my friend.
Thank you, Neil. It's an honor to be here with you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Justice Abella, for that inspiring conversation. I know I speak on behalf of everyone in saying that it's a privilege for us to have been part of that discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now I'd like to begin the awards presentation. In previous years, we would typically invite award winners up to the podium to receive their awards. And of course, unfortunately, it's impossible for us to do that this year, but we plan to announce all winners on the Gale Cup's Twitter account, which is @GaleCupMoot. And please feel free to retweet the winners and share your congratulations with them. Although normally prize winners would walk away with their prizes, I do assure you that all prizes during this part of the ceremony will be couriered directly to the winners. First, I will announce the top English and French teams not qualifying for the final round. All team member award winners in this category will receive a legal textbook from Thomson Reuters. The top English team not qualifying for the final round is UBC Allard School of Law. Congratulations to Olga Shaparenko, Deborah Trotchin, Anna Wang, and Kenny Wu. And the top French team not qualifying for the final round is Université de Sherbrooke. Congratulations to Alessandra Gauthier, Chloé Mongeau, Gabrielle Perron, and Raphael Villeneuve. And now we come to the award for best factums. The second and third place winners will all receive legal textbooks from Thomson Reuters. The first place winners will receive $200 each, a prize that has been generously sponsored by Heller Rubel. The third place winner is University of Toronto Appellant. Congratulations. The second place winner is Université de Montréal Respondent. Congratulations. The third place winner is Nunavut Law Program Saskatchewan Appellant. Congratulations. And I now present the Mclaughlin Prize, which is awarded in honor of the former Chief Justice of Canada, the Right Honorable Beverly Mclaughlin. This prize goes to the top female mooter in the Gale Cup competition. The winner of this prize will receive a set of crystal bookends, which have been generously donated by the Criminal Lawyers Association. And that award, the Mclaughlin Award, goes to Sarah Garneau, Université Laval. Congratulations, Sarah. Now I get to call upon a judge for submissions, and that will be Justice Newton, who will be presenting the Newton Prize for Civility. Justice Newton was appointed to the Ontario Court of Justice in 1989 and continues to preside in that court. Justice Newton has been an integral part of the Gale Cup Moot for many years and previously chaired the planning committee. The continued success of the Gale is due in large part to Justice Newton's long-term dedication to this event. Early in my own career, I had the privilege of encountering Justice Newton during her time as defense counsel. And based on her time as counsel and her conduct as a judge, I know that she embodies the principles of civility that this prize seeks to honor. The winner of this award will receive a bound volume of scholarly articles on the subject of civility, as well as a $200 prize. Welcome, Justice Newton, And Justice Newton will be conferring this award on Alexandra Baer, Université de Montréal. Justice Newton.
Yes, thank you very much for your kind remarks, Brian. The Gale Moot has a storied history and is considered the premier bilingual national criminal law moot. It has served as a first forum for many of the finest advocates across Canada. I am honored and humbled to have my name associated to this award. Civility has served as the watchword of my 46-year career as prosecutor, defense counsel, and judge. But it is more. My thoughts are directed at other jurists who have their names attached to prizes at this esteemed competition. Former Chief Justice Brian Dixon served our country and the administration of justice with singular distinction and dignity. The Beverly Mclaughlin Prize for the Best Female Mooter was established to honor the longest serving and first female Chief Justice of Canada. The Peter Corey Prize honors a true friend of the Gale, a great Canadian and principled judge. All three eminent jurists epitomize civility. The award was instituted last year on the cusp of COVID. Students from law schools across our great country traveled to Toronto to participate in moots conducted in the historic courtrooms of Osgoode Hall. In the evening, they mixed and mingled, maskless, with cheerful abandon, and they dined in the majestic setting of the great hall, waiting with bated breath for the presentation of the prizes and the speeches. My long-standing friend, Justice Catherine Feldman of the Ontario Court of Appeal, dedicated the prize and spoke eloquently about the importance of civility in the legal profession. She stated, as future advocates, our reputation for civility will gain you the respect of your colleagues and, very importantly as well, the judges you appear before. I am fortunate to have met many fine judges as a result of my commitment to the Gale, but it is you, the students, who have been the greatest source of inspiration. I wish each and every one of you a long, fulfilling, and stimulating legal career. You will encounter many compelling advocates, often in competitive, highly charged circumstances, not unlike your experience this weekend. We all welcome the return to a modicum of normalcy when we can, as Shakespeare wisely mused, do as adversaries do in law, strive mightily, but eat and drink as friends. Félicitations to Alexandra Baer of the University of Montreal. Here is the book that she will receive with the check, and I will personally inscribe the book. And thank you so much. And I wish, as I said, everyone a wonderful and fulfilling career. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Newton. I would now like to introduce the president of the American College of Trial Lawyers, Rodney Acker, who will briefly address you and present 3 Dixon medals for exceptional oral performance. These 3 winners will receive a medallion from the American College of Trial Lawyers and a $200 prize, which has been generally sponsored by the American College of Trial Lawyers and Fasken. It is particularly fitting that the college's 71st president represents it at this ceremony. In his long history of service to the college and to the profession, Rodney Acker has shown a real commitment to helping young lawyers develop their courtroom skills and impressing upon them the importance of maintaining the integrity of the legal profession. As just one example of that commitment, Rodney served on the college's National Trial Competition Committee for 7 years, becoming its chair for one further year and then its regent liaison for another 4 years. Welcome, Mr. Acker.
Good evening, and thank you, Brian. It's my pleasure to bring you greetings on behalf of the American College of Trial Lawyers. We have participated in the Gale Cup now for 3 decades. And this year, the college is one of the Gale Cup's 2 lead sponsors, the other being the Criminal Lawyers Association. The college hopes to continue our strong connection with the Gale Cup and our partnership with the Criminal Lawyers Association for years to come. I'd also like to thank 3 of our fellows, Justice Alan Hilton, Brian Gover, and Anil Kapoor, along with all the members and staff of the Criminal Lawyers Association, led by Dan Brown, for their work in organizing this virtual event. Let me take just a couple of minutes to tell you a little about the American College of Trial Lawyers. We are a professional fellowship of trial lawyers that have diverse backgrounds. We're from the United States and Canada, and fellowship is only granted by invitation. You cannot apply. Although there are currently more than 5,800 fellows from across Canada and the United States, our membership can never exceed 1% of the total population of a state or province. Now, our fellows. They include trial lawyers who represent plaintiffs and defendants in civil litigation, criminal prosecutors, defense counsel, labor law, IP, and administrative law lawyers. The common denominator is that all have demonstrated the very highest standards of trial advocacy, ethical conduct, integrity, professionalism, and collegiality. Our mission statement is to maintain and improve the standards of excellent trial practice, professionalism, ethics, and commitment to the administration of justice. We strongly support the independence of the judiciary, the respect for the rule of law, access to justice, and fair and just representation to all parties to legal proceedings. This mood also celebrates the important qualities of ethical conduct, integrity, professionalism, and collegiality by recognizing one student each year with the Newton Prize for Civility. Now, you may be interested to know that our organization is unique in that every justice of the United States Supreme Court and every justice of the Supreme Court of Canada has accepted honorary fellowship in the college. 3 of those honorary fellows just judged the Moot's final round. So why does the Gale Cup Moot one of the college's signature programs? Something we consider critical and central to fulfilling our mission. The college participates in the competition because we recognize the importance of ensuring that law students and young lawyers learn advocacy and trial skills so that the trial and appellate process can continue to flourish. In many ways, this competition, along with the Sapinka Cup trial competition, which the college also sponsors, reflects our commitment to the standards of advocacy skills, ethical conduct, integrity, professionalism, and collegiality that we expect of our fellows. So we see our sponsorship of this competition as critical to the development and maintenance of those standards and values. I congratulate each of you in your participation in the event. In my remaining time, let me tell you a few things about Chief Justice Brian Dixon, after whom the Dixon Medal is named. It's appropriate that we remember his contribution in the context of this moot because it focuses on criminal law and the Charter of Rights. Chief Justice Dixon's role in creating a distinctly Canadian constitutional jurisprudence. At the Charter's infancy in the 1980s, Chief Justice Dixon and the court he led made critical decisions that set the stage and direction for the Charter's significance and impact. He was a war hero. And like many of his generation, Brian Dixon's service to his country included serving in World War II. He rose to the position of captain. He distinguished himself at Normandy, but was hit by friendly fire and severely wounded, leading to the amputation of his right leg. Now, you've heard me say a lot about trial lawyers, but the fact is that not all great judges were trial lawyers. After a career of as a corporate commercial lawyer, Justice Dixon was appointed to the Manitoba Court of the Queen's Bench in 1963. He was elevated to the Manitoba Court of Appeals in 1967 and to the Supreme Court of Canada in 1973, becoming the Chief Justice in 1984 and serving with distinction until his retirement in 1990. Justice Dixon understood and promoted the Supreme Court of Canada's responsibility to consider not only the law, but the surrounding policy context of the court's decision. It is now recognized that Justice Dixon played, and I quote, a central role in the elaboration of Canada's most fundamental constitutional values, and that the product of his judicial work now constitutes an essential element of the Canadian Constitution. One of his colleagues on the court put it this way: Chief Justice Dixon was the person who gave life to the Charter, and he did so with honor, intellectual clout, generosity, and sheer humanity. All of that's to say that receiving a medal bearing his name is really a great honor. And it's a great honor for me to confer that. The winners of the Dixon Medal are, in the preliminary round, Nathan Green of McGill. Also in the preliminary round, Sophie Camille of Bellinger University, Laval. And in the final round, Salaja Naraha of Queens. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here and participate in this. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you very much, Mr. Acker. We've now come to the point in the evening that everyone has been waiting for. I have the privilege of announcing this year's Gale Cup winners. All prizes for these awards have been generously sponsored by the American College of Trial Lawyers. I will start first with the fourth place winning team who will receive miniature Gale Cup trophies. The fourth place winner is Université de Montréal, Counsel for the Respondent, Conseil de l'Intimé, Grégoire Witt-Rangel-Pratt and Alexandra Baer. Coaches, entraîneur Maud Paget-Arpin, Magali Simon, and Philippe Morneau. Congratulations. The third place winners will also receive miniature Gale Cup trophies. The third place winner is the University of Manitoba. Counsel for the Respondent, Conseil de l'Intimé, Anna Siemens and Janelle Gobin. Coaches, entraîneur Melissa Hazelton and Michelle Bright. Congratulations. The members of the second place winning team will each receive a legal textbook and a Gale Cup miniature trophy. The second place winner is Queen's University. Counsel for the appellant, Conseil de l'Appellant, Dakota Bundy and Shailaja Nataraja. Coaches, entraîneurs Jen Ferguson, Cameron Rogers, and Adam Godlewski. Congratulations to you. And finally, It's my pleasure to announce this year's winner of the Gale Cup Moot. The members of this year's winning team will each receive a miniature Gale Cup trophy and $250, as well as the possession of the Gale Cup trophy for the year. And the winner of the 2021 Gale Cup Moot is Université Laval, counsel for the appellant, Gonçalves de Lapalin, Ariane Filion-Theriault, and Sarah Garneau, coach, entraîneur Julien Gregoire. Congratulations. And congratulations to everyone who competed for what's been a marvelous, marvelous event with a pivot to proceeding virtually. You really excelled. And this concludes the 2021 Gale Cup Moot. Thank you to all of the volunteers, to the participants, and to the sponsors for making this virtual event a huge success. We hope to see everyone in person in 2022. Thanks again.